I know it's just in the heat of the moment and they just lost and it's the game 7 is so tight. But, man, I got to tell you, one of the biggest loser things that I think ever is when you hear guys say that stuff. Like, you've won one playoff series in 8 seasons and you're still saying we were right there, or that, you're proud of how you battled back. It's just like, ugh. Just don't, for the love of God. It's just painful hearing this stuff. So I'm going to go through everything today. I will listen to every single interview, and I'm going to get all worked up again, and I'm going to come on here tomorrow and we'll discuss those things. But first, my friend Kris Versteeg created the Klevr app, which, again, you can download for free in the App Store. You want to help your team actually take a step forward. You want to be able to use state-of-the-art technology without having to pay state-of-the-art prices. Go and download the Klevr app. 2-time Stanley Cup champion. What's up, brother? How we doing?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
Yeah. Yes. Great.
Great to be back.
Yeah. The vibes in the city are phenomenal.
I'm sure they're great.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. Hey, before I dive into this, what is it like during locker room cleanout day for a player? Like,
it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's actually horrible because, especially on the teams where you've lost or you've underachieved, the questions that are coming, the critics that are coming, and the hell basically you have to live through for the next week, and then obviously leading into the next season. And the questions being recycled over and over again, and this group's they've had the same questions for 5 years, 6 years now, and it's not going to stop. So I've never been in a situation where it's year after year. I've been very blessed to be on a lot of good teams. Sometimes they're underperforming, but it's not good.
Yeah. Or teams like when you're on Florida and then you go to locker room cleanout day and you're like, did they not tell the media? And they're like, oh, they did. Yeah. They told them. They're just not here. They're not here. They're on a beach, and you guys will be shortly too. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like these guys have always been so wrapped up.
Hey, back to the media. That's why you play hockey.
What do you mean?
I loved playing in big markets.
Yeah.
And I know some players see it differently, but, when I was in Florida, and like you said, the media isn't at an all-time high, you miss that type of microscope. Like Chicago, especially in our heyday, on a random Tuesday, we'd have 30 cameras in the room, and Toronto. That's why you play hockey, to have the fans and the media, and, that's for myself.
Yeah, you know what, though? I've talked about this before. I think that one of the things that is lost on this group, and by this group I mean over the last 8 years, right, is, and I've mentioned this a bunch of times, I think that they basically immediately did the vilify the media thing, even though in actuality these guys were basically praised as saviors the second that they came to town, that they were celebrated and that they were so loved. And then, if we're looking at the history of the Mitch Marner stuff, when they went into those contract negotiations and they tried to squeeze every single penny and they decided that the bar was John Tavares, a guy who had already accomplished a ton in the league and a guy who was coming there as an unrestricted free agent, when those RFAs looked at it and said, well, that's what we want. And then they were surprised that people had a reaction to it of like, what is happening here? Doesn't this feel special to you? That all of a sudden there was a weird turning against the media where the entire, and Lou's thing was always like, don't say stuff to media and be cold to the media. So some of it I think was his imprint on the relationship that they had with this city. But you've seen it from the outset, essentially, is that these guys looked at all of this, any kind of criticism, any type of commentary, as you're out of your mind and this is really toxic and this is the toxic part of being a Leaf. And I don't feel as though this group is connected to the Leafs in ways that other iterations of the group has been connected to the fan base in the past. And maybe that's because the tickets got so expensive and the real fans weren't in the building. Maybe that's because social media is a kind of an awful reflection of humanity. And if you're a player, you're looking at that stuff at the end of certain games in a way that wasn't present in the past. But either way, I think one of the hallmarks of this group is that they were never connected to the market in the way that basically every other Leafs team has been in the past.
Well, I kind of disagree with the connection to the market in the sense of, what they give on the ice and what they're willing to do. Where I feel the connection was lost is, remember, you guys were always, saying this is the next iteration of the Hawks. Marner is Kane and Matthews is Taves and this guy's Keith. I remember that,
Yeah, I know.
especially in the early days, and it was a very big connection. And you didn't have the depth players like the Bufflin, the Ladd, and all these other guys, but you weren't able to retain them because on the second contracts you had to pay these guys so much, where the Kane and Taves actually took less in order to keep guys around. So, like you said, I think that's where the connection of the fan base got angry with the Stars. Stars truly do have a connection to the fan base and love being here. I'll never say that these guys don't truly love being Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Austin Matthews loves being a Toronto Maple Leaf, Mitch Marner, and all that comes with it. But I think the connection between the two always comes down to, well, why didn't you take less in order to keep a better team around to try to win Stanley Cups?
Well, especially when you hadn't won yet, right? Like that was the big thing. You hadn't accomplished anything yet, and you set your team behind the eight ball when it came to their ability to provide depth or your ability to actually win hockey games. And so
and
when
that's on Dubas big time too.
Yeah, for sure it is. I totally agree. Like there's definitely a very odd window, that sliding doors that you can play out of if it's still Lou, because it's not like Lamoriello has gone on to have just incredible success. And maybe you do lose Dubas. And maybe if Lou is here and Nylander tries to sit out that entire year, you end up trading Nylander and he goes on to be this great player. But maybe it sets a different culture. Maybe you win the other two contracts. Maybe you end up with a deeper team. Maybe you keep Hyman. Like it's kind of you could do a million different what ifs with this team. Like these guys have a million different what ifs. Okay, now let's get into the series. Number one, I did want to ask you with your educated eye, because everyone's seen the clip a billion times now. The game-winning goal itself that Pasternak ends up scoring on. There's when you break down the film, it's the worst visual for William Nylander because he's not even skating at all, even though he's not really involved in the play. Mitch Marner gets beat. Morgan Rielly gets beat. Samsonov gets beat. What did you see? You're breaking down that film. How do you break up the blame pie?
So in the NHL, it's the rule of two. If you make one mistake, you can't make a second. So in the D zone, if one guy gets beat off the wall, the second guy has to help. If there's a shot from the point, you need a box out in front. On that play, it was the rule of four. Four guys were sleeping, and Lindholm and Pasternak were the only two aware on the ice of what was happening. So if you look at Lindholm coming up the ice, Marner's on a change. Marner needs to head check and take a 1-minute penalty. Just for those who don't know what 1-minute penalties are, it's a penalty that's not bad enough to be two. So he's got to have a head check and get in the lane of Pasternak to slow him down. There needs to be communication back. Now, Marner's kind of messed up that situation with not getting in the skating lane of Pasternak or letting his defense know there's a guy coming. Riley's way too far over to the middle of the ice. You have Nylander, who is full sleeping, not ready there. And Samsonov already is way too deep in his net. So you have four guys essentially sleeping in the biggest moment of the game, not communicating. So if I look at the blame to be shared, it's 25% to all four guys. There's no communication. Guys are sleeping. No 1-minute penalty or getting in a skating lane. So, again, is it fully Marner's mistake? No, he made the first mistake. Nylander's not aware. He makes the second mistake. Riley's too far over. He makes the third mistake. And then you have Samsonov who's sleeping in the net. So that's the rule of four. It's going in the back of the net when four guys on the ice aren't aware of the situation at that magnitude of the game.
So they got back into the series, right? That's worth something, or is it?
I think it's worth something the way it was. We can always look back and say, yes, Nylander was hurt. What if? Matthews is hurt. What if? They definitely showed, to me, a lot of character to come back in the series. Back to the Bruins, they're not that good of a team. They're just not that good, I don't think, to be a Stanley Cup contender. Can they win a round maybe or two based on their defensive structure and their coaching? Maybe, yeah. But they got back in the series against an average team and did not close it out. Back to the game a second. Was it kind of strange that Matthews sets up Nylander and then he doesn't get another shift with him until the last 2 minutes? Stuff like that. Let's go back to coaching, but that's a whole other thing. For that, though, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. And I'll tie these two things together. One is a lot of fans are saying, I wish they just lost in 5. I wish they didn't put us through that mix of emotions, the burying them and then coming back and then only to be more heartbroken. And man, I'm telling you, it was heartbreaking. Like, I don't root for the team the way that I did when I was a kid, pretty obviously. Like, this is my job now. It's pretty rare where I feel like, oof, like a real crushing defeat. Even the Florida series last year wasn't this. This one, to have it be 4 straight to the Bruins and to have it where the Leafs got a lead for a second. They actually had a lead in TD Garden with only a few minutes, like a half a period to play in Boston. You're starting to go, oh my God, this is just huge. Yeah, who cares if they lose to Florida? Who cares? This might actually happen, a positive moment for the fan base. It was crushing for it to just be removed immediately like that. But yeah, I like the fact that they came back in the series just because I think it was a little bit of proof or validation of what you have in Brad Treliving, trying to make a gutsier group, a tougher group, one with, blue liners that took away the middle of the ice and that would wear you down physically over the course of a series. And I thought, you know what, this is encouraging for them and what their vision is going to be moving forward. Now, the coaching stuff, we did Leafs talk right after, right? And I thought Bourne made a good point, which is the Leafs were a structured team, and so that's got to count for something when it comes to coaching.
Okay. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Yeah.
Is Bourne going off the fact? Did he just reset the clock with the? Like, here's the thing: if you lost in 4 games or 5 games, Keith's gone.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they showed a little bit of heart, a little bit of comeback, and is Bourne advocating?
No. He thinks he should go. He thinks that the time is up, but it's just that coaching.
Does it reset the clock?
No.
For everyone to be like, keep Keith now and do this and do that.
No.
Okay.
I don't think that's the case. In fact, he went against it. I just meant that when we're trying to evaluate what was poor about Keith from the series from my non-hockey mind, it's you go look at the power play and you're like, okay, well, that's dreadful. The special teams battle, you got caved in. But just that they were a team that didn't break down defensively, a team that did come back in the series. Like, how much credit are you given for that? Like, what were the main gripes you had? Because you are someone that pays more attention to, like, the shifts and the running of the bench. And so, I kind of want to know where you think the biggest Keith downfalls are, because I don't think he's coming back, and I think that they're bringing in a new coach.
I think it comes into the details of the game, situational awareness, who's going with what guy. How do you get your depth guys going? Why is the power play stagnant? Why isn't it changing? Why isn't certain guys going into certain roles at times? What are the guys' roles? Now, defensively, they were very structured. They had to play that way, especially with Matthews out, especially with Nylander coming back. That's just something that they had to do in order to get back into the series. They bought into it. It was great to see. Now, who scored, though? Mm-hmm. Who scored? The power play didn't score. Your depth guys didn't score. Boston gets a goal, a big goal by Lindholm, scored by their third line, right? Where was the goals from the third, fourth line? How are they getting involved into the series? How are they helping offensively? Where was some of your stars at times? How are they getting involved to score a game winner or to take the game over? So looking at even into the final, like you have Matthews who sets up Nylander. And I know Matthews, he's hobbling, right? You can tell there was something there. You could tell he didn't have that extra gear, but he sets up a goal.
Yep.
With when was that goal set up? With the 11 minutes left?
Yeah, like 10 minutes left, yeah.
Okay. Then they get scored against roughly a minute and a half later against that camp line, where they looked like a debacle in the D zone, that camp line. They were running all around. All of a sudden, the D was on the Leaf D was on their D, and they didn't know where they were going, and it was a complete disaster.
There was 3 guys behind the net.
3 guys behind, and then you don't put Matthews back out with Nylander. He goes back out with Yarncroc. Now it's just little things like that. You guys just scored a goal. 2 guys might feel good together. You got to run with that now. You got to get back the guys who are scoring together. And I do understand trying to, like we've always said, go to 3 lines, sometimes try to create mismatches because they definitely have more talent throughout their lineup to score. Just another play right there where he doesn't get his next shift with Nylander to I don't even know when. I don't even think he had another shift with Nylander. Did he?
I don't know.
He set up that goal?
I
didn't see another one. I didn't see another one with him. And then you got him again with Yarncroc and Holmberg. So those are just little things for me. When a guy sets up a goal, these two guys are on the ice. They clearly like playing together. Get them back out together. That just comes back to coaching and the detail and who's going and who wants to play together at big moments. So, yes, they were structured the last 3 games, super structured. I thought they were structured all series pretty well, except in game 1.
Mm-hmm.
But just, again, you score how many goals? You're never going to win a series scoring 1 goal.
14 games in a row, Kris, where they've scored 3 or less. Only one of those games they scored 3. The rest are 2 or 1. Their last 4 eliminations in game 7s, they've scored 1 goal. Like this
You're not going to win.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like it's the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with it. So, yes, they came back. Yes, they showed character and heart, because there is a lot of guys with high character in that room and a lot of heart, and they buckled down to try to get their superstar back in the lineup, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he came back and played his hardest with whatever he's ailing with. He set up a goal in a big moment, and they did show heart. But as for the coach,
mm-hmm.
as for Keefe, this has not changed. He still rode certain guys in certain moments. He didn't change things. He didn't get guys together. And for myself, watching it time and time again, I don't think it changes if he keeps coaching this iteration of the team. Nothing's going to change. It's like he's handcuffed by putting certain guys out there, not using other guys to what their abilities are, not getting his secondary guys in the game more. And that's where I think that this team continuously falters time and time again.
Yeah. It is funny looking back, because there was a quote after the game Montgomery gave. He's like, I consulted Babcock on what to do as this team. I was like, man, this is an unnecessary pile-on. That was harder for me to swallow than even seeing Matthew Tkachuk take to the podium and go, hey, this is that. But if you do remember back to the Babcock era, one of the things he was most famously crushed for by media and fans alike was moving guys around and making them earn minutes back. Like, he'd be harsh on Marner in some moments, or harsh on Nylander in some moments, right? Like burying them with ice time. People wondered about the ice time of an Austin Matthews. Is he getting too much? Is he getting too little? And he would always constantly prioritize Hyman, because he was like the consistency dog who would work his ass off every single shift. And yeah, other guys did, some guys had too much ice time, too high of a role. But it is funny to see that one come back and bite them in the ass in particular.
And I think it's a balance in between the two coaches.
For sure.
I think there's always a balance somewhere in the middle. Yes, you got to get like when I would look at some of Babcock's stuff in the game 7, I think Matthews only played 17 minutes.
Yeah, it was crazy. He had the 1 year where he just like would not put him over the boards, and you're like, what are you doing, man? This
even
is
in
nuts.
the final minute and a half, he didn't have him out there.
Yeah.
That's just stupidity.
Yeah, and he was like openly questioning his conditioning, and it was getting out there that they were basically trying to make him go into the offseason and be more like Patrick Marleau, where he never left the bike.
Yeah, that's pure stupidity by Babcock.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you got to earn minutes. You have to have to do the ability. And I understand the playing of Hyman because he's going all the time. Some coaches love players that struggle, because those players that struggle are the ones that compete the hardest, and they believe that could drive the team's work ethic up. So I understand that ideology of what he wanted, but the way Babcock went about it a lot of the time was pure stupidity.
Yeah, of course.
And the way Keefe has gone about it is no accountability almost. So you need some balance of the middle ground. You need a guy that'll hold accountability yet still keep your horses running consistently and keep them happy while getting your secondary guys involved.
Yeah, that's why I think that the next coach has to come with crazy bona fides. And I think that ultimately they should hire a guy like Berube who actually played, because I think that's going to be an important component for some of these guys too, is like, let them run the YouTube highlights, of the scraps. Let them be able to look at this and have the coach enter the room and say, this is what it actually takes, because I've actually been there. I'm going to hold you super accountable, because that clearly needs to change, but I'm not just coming from a barking orders like a Tortorella, right? I'm coming from a place of experience that I need this to happen. And I don't know. That's my best guess or my best hope for the next head coach. But yeah, it's going to be, I think that's going to be a certainty. The other one is Marner, his future, right? It's very much in flux. If you had to pick the most likely moves of the Leafs offseason. Number one would be firing the head coach, and I think number two would be a Marner trade. I just want to know what you saw from him over the course of this series and whether the criticisms were overblown.
Well, so 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I've always advocated for Marner to stay. Mm-hmm. I've always said Marner needs to stay. The way I look at Marner is much like a Phil Kessel. And Phil is one of my close friends in the game, and I love him. Mm-hmm. But Phil couldn't be the number one guy, the number two. He had to sit below Crosby, even though in some of the series and in some of those instances with Pittsburgh, he could take over and because he could play on that third line or second line and create mismatches for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's similar to the way I see Marner. Unless Marner takes maybe either A, less money, or the understanding that if they bring in other guys that he's going to sit within the lineup a little bit lower, I think he has to be the guy that you move out now. You have to bring in other guys that will surround the lineup with more stability and more, I guess. We look at Marner's numbers in the playoffs. They're not that bad. I would like to understand the numbers a little deeper on how many of those are cookie numbers and how many of those, and how many of those points are actually in games that mattered or in situations that mattered.
You want to know? The numbers in games 1 through 4 are like, he's normal Mitch Marner. Games 5 through 7, he completely disappears and does nothing.
So that again for me is I see Marner as a guy that is in the secondary. He can go onto a top line, but if he's taking up 11, then he wants $12, $13 million of your cap, that means he's your top guy who has to be the top guy time and time again. I see it much more like a Phil Kessel where, he's not going to draw. Like, he could go onto another team and be that more secondary. He could play with top guys, but be that more secondary guy, much like a Phil Kessel, and help a team win a Stanley Cup. But if he's going to be the guy, the most highest paid guy or second on the team, I think that's where you're going to find problems again with the bottom end of the lineup if he's not the guy. Mm-hmm. So if I'm looking at Mitch and how he played in the series, again, you're talking about board battles. You're talking about what else you're doing on the ice and the details. Like I said, the 1-minute penalty on the play or going in and getting the puck. In overtime, he turned up with the puck too and just turned it over right to the middle of the ice. Even at the last, I think it was 2 minutes of the game, he entered the zone, he button hooked, he tried to make a back pass, and then he created a rush the other way. Those are plays that need to be executed or live to fight another day, not turning it over there time and time again. So I looked at the entirety of the series. Yeah, he had some moments and flashes when he got to the middle of the ice, but the board battles, the play below the net, those are things that we talked about last year and the year before. Is in the playoffs, those are areas you got to go to get the puck. You got to keep pucks alive. You got to get to pucks first. You got to take a hit. And he just didn't do it time and time again. You look at McDavid, look at all these guys. They're going in hard for pucks first. They're willing to puck out of piles. And, you could blame Marner's size and stature. But, man, I wasn't a big guy, or Patrick Kane's not a big guy, and I'm not comparing myself to Marner. I'm comparing it more in size. You have to be willing to get those pucks, and that's where I just didn't see it time and time again. Not saying he never did it, but you have to be willing to do it in the playoffs, shift in, shift out, details, and all that. So if you're looking at a guy you have to move, I would look at Marner at the moment. You would have to get the right return with also understanding what money he wants back. If he wants the 11, 12, 13, 14 million dollars, of course you're going to have to move him out. If he's willing to take less to sit back in the lineup, then that's another situation that can arise. But what does he want? What does the team need? And if you're willing or you have to move out a piece, at the moment he's the guy. You can't move Tavares, you can't move Nylander, and you can't move Matthews.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We know now that that's not going to happen, period. He's not going to be the guy that wears the most in the media and then says, I'm going to be the one who takes less. And in fact, even if he took the exact same number he's making now, which I think is 10.9, fans would
11,
be... Yeah.
It's 10.9 or 11.5.
Yeah. I think it's 10.9. I don't think it's 11.5. But even if he took that number, I think people would go, that's too much. That's too much for what you're getting. And by the way, I have those numbers just quickly here. Marner in game sevens has now, and he's played in 5 of them. He's got 0 goals, 2 points. He's a -5. And in the career playoff games 1 through 4, he's got 41 points in 36 games. And in 5 through 7, he's got 9 points in 21 games. Like, it just, he has had a disappearing act. And when you talk about like guys with size, go look through the playoff scoring leaders, right? Look at the series. Oh, you don't even have to look outside of the series. Brad Marchand is older and he's smaller. Like, he's not as tall. And he's got 3 goals and 5 assists, I think. He had 8 points in the series. Like, Wyatt Johnson is out there for Dallas, a younger guy. He's not a giant. He's like the same size as Mitch Marner. And yes, better shot, different kind of player. He's ripping 4 goals in a series. He's coming up massive for them. Like, go around hockey. Mitch Marner's not the only undersized player in the postseason. So the size thing to me is...
Yeah, the size is irrelevant, I think, because I heard Kiprios talking about it, and I was like, all right, Nick, like, let's not give him a pass on him being 165 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because Nick was trying to say, he's 165. He just, no. I wasn't a big guy. Kane wasn't a big guy. You just have to be a dog. You have to get the puck. You have to battle. Yeah, you're going to lose some battles due to size, but I'm telling you, if you have the tenacity and you have the dog, you're going to go get the puck. You're going to go make plays happen no matter what. And like you said, you see it in
How big
Marchand.
is Braden Point?
He might only be 170 pounds.
Braden Point's what, 5'10"? Generously?
He's smaller than me. Like shorter than me for sure.
So there you go.
5'9". But again,
5'9", smokes darts, still dog.
Yeah. Gets in on pucks. But that's where I said, like, I hear analysts talk about the size, and I'm like, shut up. That's not it. You know, it just comes down to being a dog, man. In these games, you have to be dialed in. You have to be willing to get hurt. You have to be, like, you literally, deep down inside, have to be willing to block a shot with your face in order to win a Stanley Cup. And it doesn't matter your size. I've played with plenty of guys that are small that are willing to literally die on the ice to win a hockey game.
Yeah. Okay, so you saw Tkachuk's comments, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said
that. You told me about him, and then I quickly...
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, right. So, yeah, for those that are living under a rock, he said that the Panthers expected the Bruins to come through. He said the one way or the other they were going to come through. I'm curious about the rep at this point, because I've always said the thing that worries me about run it back is not that it's talented guys. Like, obviously you want talented players. It's that when you get into these difficult moments, what do you expect to change? The result is going to end up being the same, and the guys in that room probably feel the same. Like, I always hear you talk about Kane, right? And the confidence is inspired within you guys because you knew you had the most clutch guy, right? God, what a psychological advantage to have the guy you think is clutch. For them, it's got to be the complete opposite now, right? Where they go, hey, guys, you always lose all the game sevens, and you never score any goals, and your power play sucks in the most important time. And then everybody clowns on you, and then you guys are on the golf course, or you're in Cabo, or Matthew's back at the compound, whatever. But get ready, get used to that. I'm curious if it matters that the way that other teams see these guys, like if it actually inspires confidence in them when playing them, like how hard it's going to be if they do decide to quote unquote run this back or something close to it. That reputation is just so difficult to overcome, and what kind of a barrier it represents around the league.
Well, God bless Matthew Tkachuk. I'm sure he was just like, I know Chucky well. I'm sure he's just throwing shade at the fan base of Toronto a little bit with that, of course.
I like
knowing, it. And I like it too. But you know, when I'm sure with Chuck, he was playing against the Leafs, he would love the limelight and playing against the team and being a little rat out there, similar to Marchand and all that. But I'm sure that was more just as a bit of a shade throw at the fan base rather than actually believing it was just going to be the Boston Bruins. Now, looking around the league and how they probably view Toronto, I think they view Toronto as a dangerous team. They have weapons. They have guys that can go off at any time. Obviously, it's been tough in big moments for them to do it. And if you're talking about running it back, there definitely has to be a shift in who comes in and who comes in if you're trading Marner. Like, who would come in for him? right? What type of players are coming in? So I think that piece of the culture needs to shift. They definitely need to move one guy out. Mm-hmm. They have to change the coach, and they have to get everyone dialed in to what their roles are. So that can change. Look at the Washington Capitals. They had to change some guys in and out. Mm-hmm. They had to put guys in places that were more bought into the roles, not just always the best players, putting the best players there. And they go out and win a Stanley Cup in Ovechkin's 13th year. So I think the Toronto Maple Leafs can do it at some point. They will have to surround the team with guys bought, sold, and hook, line, and sinker essentially into whatever their roles are. And they are very good at it while letting their star players flourish, being coached into details and understanding that you got to get everyone into the game. And that can change over time for this club. But pieces will have to change for it in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that they've gone from being compared to your Blackhawks teams to the Penguins, because that was the other one, because it was like, oh, they don't have a blue line, but they've got the studs up front. And to now everyone always references them with the Capitals. It's like, hey, just get one cheeky one, just get one wherever things break your way of the year, and maybe you'll play.
Look at the Hawks and the Penguins. Like our third line had Ladd and Bufflin and Boland, and then that's the depth of the team that was able to stay due to the cap at the time. And then obviously we got crushed out of the cap later, but the star players still took a little bit less in order to keep the majority of the hosts and those other guys still around and still well paid. So that piece is the piece that hurts it. And now they're with the cap going up, and if you move a guy out, now you can start to move more guys in, hopefully that fill in the bottom half of the lineup. But you also need a coaching staff that is willing to play certain guys that they bring in.
Yeah, no, I think that point's really well made. And the other thing is that I think this is what people have come around on in this market when it comes to the core four and why it doesn't work. It's like it could work if all your stars are clicking at a high-end level and if they dominated games. And people would probably even hear the excuses in this series and go, oh, okay, if they had done it in the past. But yeah, to have 14 playoff games again in a row where you just don't have this, right? 13 of them where he's 2 or less. People go, all right, well, where is the taking over? Because they understand not having depth as long as those guys dominate. If they were going out there and having, McDavid-esque and Draisaitl-esque and McKinnon and Makar, right? Like there's Kachuk in his series. Like go look through the guys, right? McKinnon,
they're taking over.
McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen, and like all these guys, they dominated. Makar was amazing watching. And I was like, is this a different sport that this guy is playing? Like how did he get so good? When you're having that feeling watching your players, like you did with Matthews in game 2, actually, which before he got hurt, I'm saying, wow, damn, this guy may have unlocked that kind of level of it. If you were seeing that with some of the other guys, people would be more forgiving of it. You'd be going, okay, try to find the pieces around the core, but it's been enough. And so I guess last one for you is, do you remove more than one piece? Like if it's Marner, I don't think Tavares can go anywhere. Like it's just not going to happen. Nylander and Matthews are here to stay. I guess this question is basically, would you explore a Riley trade as well? Like, are you trying to make this more drastic than just the coach and one guy? Are you trying to cut the knife deeper? No. I don't think you can move Riley. Okay. I still think Riley is too valuable to the team as a leader. I think he's a great voice in the room. He's been around the longest. He understands what being a Leaf is. I truly believe a guy like Riley loves being a Leaf. Mm-hmm. I think he loves being here. You watch his interviews. He's honest. He talks from the heart. I don't even look at Riley at all. You do need to insulate him with another puck mover, a couple guys that can get back there. They can do multiple things, whether it's defend and create offense. I know they tried to bring Klingberg in. Obviously, it didn't work out. But you do need to insulate him with some more guys to help him where he doesn't have to be the guy to run the first power play, where he does. And that's like Riley can run it, but that's not, I wouldn't say that that's his specialty. No.
And could he run the second power play? Yeah. Maybe it takes a little more pressure off him and makes him feel better. Yeah. But then when you get back to the second power play, you need a coaching staff that breaks up the power play and puts 2 on, right? So both power plays are playing, not just one force fed. And then you have, I was watching in that Boston game again, game 7, like a minute and 15 seconds into the power play, they're still on in the neutral zone trying to regroup to go again. You know, like they should be off the ice and the second unit needs to be on at some point.
And the second unit actually had some jump.
And they had some jump and they had some chances. Yarncroc had a chance and they were actually getting pucks to the net and battling. And they'd only get 30 seconds to do it, 20 seconds to do it off zone entries, off of a power play breakout. So I know I'm getting off the beaten path with Riley, but it's just, I would not look at him at all. He's a guy that I believe loves being a Leaf. And I know the media can be hard on him at times because he is the highest paid defenseman, but he needs to be insulated with more guys on the back end that do something similar or better than him offensively, and that can help that first power play unit.
Again, if you want top tier technology, but at not those prices, you can go and you can download the Klevr app at the Apple Store, wherever you get your apps. Again, it's something that Kris is the co-creator of. Two-time Stanley Cup champion. Thanks as always for your perspective, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
See you, man.